Capricorn. There's a pain that even time refuses to touch. A wound that doesn't bleed on the outside, but it drains the soul from within. And that's the pain of betrayal when it comes not from enemies, not from strangers, but from the very people whose voices once comforted you. Whose names are written in your childhood. Whose laughter once echoed in the same room you now feel haunted in. Let me ask you something. What do you do when the person who shared your memories becomes the one who rewrites your story behind your back? What do you do when your sister, the one who knew your fears, your dreams, the one who held your hand when you were young, becomes the very force that twists the knife? Capricorn, this isn't fiction. This isn't drama. This is real. This is your reality. And you're not here by accident. You didn't click this video out of boredom. You clicked because something inside you already knew. You felt it. The shift in the air. The silence that used to feel peaceful, now feels heavy. The eyes that used to admire you, now avoid yours. And behind that coldness, behind the subtle digs and the missing support, there was a plan. She betrayed you. Not only did she do it in silence, she made sure someone else joined her. A family member. Another person you trusted. Together, they whispered. They rearranged your truth. They gathered your pain like ammunition, and used it to stain your name in rooms you weren't invited into. And here's the part that no one wants to admit. You felt it long before you saw it. Capricorns always do. Because you're not just intuitive, you're guarded. And for someone to get close enough to hurt you this deeply, it means you let your walls down. You allowed love in. You offered loyalty. You extended trust where most people never earn it. So now, you're not just feeling the betrayal. You're feeling the guilt of having trusted them. But listen to me carefully. This is not your shame to carry. This is not your burden to bear. What they did behind your back says everything about them, and nothing about your worth. And now, the universe is exposing them. Not just to you, but to everyone who once doubted you. The lies. They're unraveling. The fake smiles. They're cracking. The image they built by burying you, it's collapsing under the weight of truth. Because the universe does not forget. Because karma doesn't miss. Because divine justice waits, but it never fails. So before we begin, I want you to type these words in the comments, not just for others to see, but so your spirit can finally breathe again. Karma never misses. The truth is rising. Say it once. Say it boldly. Say it as a declaration, not of revenge, but of release. Because this isn't just about what they did. This is about what happens next. In the next hour, I'm going to take you through something most people will never understand. The depth of pain when betrayal comes from blood. The reason they chose to do what they did. The divine purpose behind why you were the one chosen to experience this. And how your pain is about to become your greatest power. Capricorn, don't let go. What comes next will heal places you haven't even told anyone are hurting. Stay with me, not because you're weak, but because you're stronger than they ever imagined. And now, it's time the world sees it too. Part 1. The cut that came from blood. Capricorn, betrayal from a stranger might sting. But betrayal from someone who shares your blood, that's a wound that doesn't just pierce the skin, it sinks into the bone. You see, when a stranger lies about you, you get angry. When a colleague undermines you, you feel disappointed. But when a sister, someone who grew up under the same roof, shared the same table, and knew your most innocent version, turns her back on you, it's not just heartbreak. It's disorientation. It's like waking up one morning and realizing the ground you've been walking on was never solid to begin with. You trusted her. Not because she earned it, but because you believed, maybe blindly, that family means loyalty. Because that's what society teaches us, right? Blood is thicker than water. Family will always protect you. Your sister is your forever friend. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes, the ones with the most access to your soul are the very ones who know exactly where to strike when they want to break you. And she did. With words behind closed doors. With silence when you needed her voice. With twisted stories that made you look like the villain in a narrative she rewrote without your consent. She didn't use a weapon. She used trust. She weaponized your shared history, and that's what cut the deepest. Capricorn, I know what you're thinking. How could she? Why would someone who knows my struggles, who's seen me cry, who's watched me build myself up, want to bring me down? The answer is hard. But it's simple. Because pain exists in places you didn't create. And she never learned how to heal hers. Sometimes, people resent those who survive the very things they're drowning in. You're strong. You push forward no matter how heavy life gets. You stay silent when others would lash out. You've built yourself quietly, without stepping on anyone. But to someone filled with unspoken resentment, even your quiet resilience can feel like an offense. Let me share a story with you. There was once a Capricorn woman named Eliana. She was the eldest of 3 sisters. Responsible. Quiet. Always the one people leaned on. Her youngest sister, Maya, had a stormier life, always searching for approval, validation, attention. When Eliana got promoted and started building a quiet but steady life, she didn't boast. She didn't show off. But somehow, her stillness made Maya feel unseen. So Maya began whispering, "She thinks she's better than us. Must be nice to have it easy. Don't be fooled, she's cold underneath." And slowly, the family began shifting. Not because Eliana changed, but because Maya told them she did. By the time Eliana realized what had happened, she was alone at family gatherings. Conversations stopped when she walked in. Even her mother questioned her intentions. But karma doesn't forget. Eventually, Maya's lies began to unravel when she tried to manipulate another family member, and this time, the truth couldn't be buried. The family didn't apologize to Eliana directly, but they watched her with new eyes. Eyes that finally saw her silence for what it was, strength, not arrogance. Capricorn, you might be living your own version of Eliana's story. Maybe your name was whispered in rooms you never entered. Maybe your accomplishments were painted as arrogance. Maybe your strength, the very thing that helped you survive, was misinterpreted as coldness. But I need you to hear this. You are not the villain in their story. You are simply the mirror they couldn't face. They didn't betray you because you were weak. They betrayed you because you were strong. Because you refused to shrink to make others feel comfortable. Because your quiet excellence reminded them of what they couldn't achieve or become. So now you stand here. Shaken. Yes. But broken? Absolutely not. And soon, the very truth they tried to bury will be the very truth that rises, with or without your help. Because truth doesn't need revenge. It just needs time. Life lesson number 1, what cuts you can also shape you. The sharpest pain comes from those we once protected, but that pain is also a sacred teacher. It shows you who you are when you lose what you thought was unbreakable. It teaches you that sometimes, family is a title, but integrity is a choice. Let your wound become your wisdom, not your weight. Part 2, the second blow, when one turns 2. Capricorn, betrayal is never just about the act itself. It's about the echo. It's about the aftershock that comes when you realize it wasn't just one person. It wasn't just your sister. Someone else joined her. And that, right there, is the second wound. Not just the betrayal, but the confirmation. Because one person turning on you can be dismissed as a misunderstanding. You might try to rationalize it. She's hurting. She misunderstood me. Maybe I didn't explain myself well. But when another person, someone you also loved, someone who should have defended you, chooses to stand with your betrayer instead of beside you, it breaks something even deeper. That's not just betrayal. That's alignment. That's confirmation that the betrayal wasn't accidental. It was planned. It was sustained. And it wasn't just about hurting you, it was about undermining everything you are. Let's go deeper. The second person may not have spoken first. They may not have started the fire. But they brought the fuel. And sometimes, the one who joins quietly is more dangerous than the one who strikes loudly. Because they made a choice. They looked at the situation, looked at you, and still chose to align themselves against your name. Maybe it was a cousin. Maybe it was an aunt. Maybe it was even your parent. And the moment you realized it, the pain shifted. It went from confusion to clarity, from disbelief to awakening. Not only did you feel betrayed, you began to feel foolish. Foolish for not seeing it sooner. Foolish for having believed that family would always choose truth. Foolish for trusting smiles that were never sincere. But Capricorn, let me stop you there. Don't confuse loyalty with blindness. You loved them, so you believed in them. You didn't miss the signs because you were naive. You missed them because you were pure in your intentions. And that's nothing to regret. I want to tell you a story. There was a Capricorn man named Jordan. He ran a small business and had been saving for years to buy his first property. His sister, knowing this, went behind his back and convinced their cousin to join her in creating a false narrative that Jordan was selfish, manipulative, and exploiting family ties to get ahead. Together, they spread this version of him to the rest of the family. They twisted moments from years past. They painted his success as arrogance. They planted seeds of doubt and resentment in the family tree. Jordan didn't know at first. He simply began to notice coldness, distance, silences in group chats, holidays he was no longer invited to, until one day, a family friend let something slip, and the whole picture shattered. He didn't confront them immediately. He didn't scream or beg for validation. He just stepped back. And in the quiet, karma began her work. Because while his sister and cousin were busy destroying his name, they were also destroying their own reputations. In trying to isolate him, they exposed themselves. And one by one, others began to see through the illusion. Capricorn, I tell you this because you might be in Jordan's shoes. And you may feel alone right now. But what you're experiencing is not abandonment, it's revelation. When one person betrays you, it's devastating. But when two or more join forces, it reveals something much deeper. They were never aligned with your spirit. They were aligned with your silence, your usefulness, your support, your success, but never your truth. And now that you've stopped shrinking to make them feel safe, they've shown you who they really are. This is painful, but it's powerful. Because now you're not guessing. You're not doubting your own intuition. You're seeing it clearly, and with clarity comes freedom. Don't beg for answers. Don't demand apologies. Let people speak with their alignment, not their words. The fact that someone stood against you without asking for your side of the story, that's all the truth you need. Life lesson number 2, who stands with you matters less than who stands against you. The people who choose to betray you will often bring others with them, not because you were wrong, but because they needed witnesses to their own insecurity. But remember this, the ones who quietly join the betrayal reveal more about their own fears than your worth. Let their silence speak, and let it set you free. Part 3, what they took from you, and why it's not yours to keep. Capricorn, when someone betrays you, especially family, they don't just take your trust. They steal the image you once held of them. And sometimes, worse than losing the person, is losing the version of them you thought was real. But let's be honest, betrayal like this never takes just one thing. They didn't just take your peace. They didn't just take your confidence. They took your voice, your safety, your space in the family. They reached into your life, the very life you built piece by piece, and tried to pull it apart, quietly, methodically, and with intention. And here's what hurts most. They didn't take these things because they needed them. They took them because you had them. They saw something in you that they didn't know how to create for themselves. Your reputation. Your consistency. The way others looked at you with quiet respect. Even your ability to hold your head high when everything was falling apart, that unnerved them. So instead of asking how you built that piece, they chose to try and break it. Instead of learning from you, they chose to punish you for being unshakable. And you're left with the aftermath. You're the one picking up the shattered pieces of your name in family conversations. You're the one explaining your silence, defending your intentions, correcting twisted stories you never knew existed. But here's a truth very few ever speak out loud. What they took was never truly yours to carry anyway. Let me explain. Your peace. It doesn't come from people. It comes from your alignment with your soul. Your reputation. It can be destroyed in whispers, but rebuilt in time, and with truth. Your sense of identity. That never belonged in their hands in the first place. You just gave them access to it because you loved them. And now that they've mishandled it, you have the sacred opportunity to take it back. Because here's what happens when someone takes something sacred from you. You realize whether it was truly essential or whether it was just borrowed meaning. Let me tell you about another Capricorn. Her name was Nia. She was known in her family for being the rock. The one who always showed up. The one who kept secrets. The one who lent money without keeping count. The one who forgave too quickly. One year, Nia discovered that 2 family members, a sibling and a cousin, had used her name to cover up their financial mistakes. They told others she was the reason money went missing. They painted her generosity as manipulation. And when it all came out, no one stood up for her. Nia lost the sense of identity she'd held for years. The dependable one. The strong one. The respected one. At first, she collapsed. But with time, something unexpected happened. She began to rebuild not who she used to be, but who she was meant to be. She stopped saving people who wouldn't do the same for her. She started saying no. She started owning her silence not as weakness, but as a boundary. And eventually, even though she lost her role in the family, she found something better. Herself. Capricorn, you may feel like you lost your place. Like they took away the version of you that everyone respected. But I want to say something clearly, and I need you to let it settle deep in your bones. What was built on others' perception was always fragile. But what is rebuilt from your own truth that becomes unshakable? Let them take the image. Let them tear down the title. Let them smear your name if they must. Because when they strip you of what they gave you, you are finally free to build something they cannot touch. You were never here to be their peacekeeper. You were here to be your own protector. You were never here to maintain their illusions. You were here to walk in truth, even if it made others uncomfortable. What they took from you may have hurt, but what you rebuild will make you whole. Life lesson number 3, when they take what you built, you learn what can't be taken. True value is never found in the hands of others. It lives within. What they tried to take, your peace, your name, your power, was never truly theirs to touch. Let them walk away with the illusion. You walk forward with what's real. Part 4. Why they did it. The truth behind their envy. Capricorn, one of the most agonizing questions after betrayal is, why? Why would someone you loved, someone you trusted, someone who knew your heart, do this to you? Why would your own sister and another family member take the time, the effort, the planning to hurt you? You search for reasons. You replay conversations. You question your own memory. Did I do something wrong? Was I too cold? Was I too successful? But let's be clear, and this may hurt at first before it heals. They didn't betray you because you were cruel. They betrayed you because your light was too bright for their hidden shame. Let's call envy what it really is. It's not admiration. It's not confusion. It's not competition. It's pain disguised as resentment. A mirror people can't look into without being reminded of what they lack. Your sister may have smiled when you entered the room. She may have hugged you at birthdays. She may have cheered for your small wins. But deep down, she wasn't clapping for you, she was comparing herself to you. Because you, Capricorn, represent something most people can't emulate. You rise in silence. You endure without complaining. You earn respect without demanding it. You walk into a room and don't need to say anything, yet your presence speaks louder than words. That kind of strength. It either inspires people or intimidates them. And when it comes from someone so close, like a sister, who perhaps lived under the same roof, but didn't walk the same path, who faced her own failures while watching you steadily ascend, that envy doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers to her ego. You'll always be second. You'll never be seen like her. They admire her. They tolerate you. And instead of facing that pain and healing it, she chose to project it onto you. Now what about the family member who joined her? That person didn't act out of love either. They acted out of fear. Fear that your rise meant their irrelevance. Fear that you outgrew the version of you they could control. Fear that if you kept shining, no one would notice them anymore. So what did they do? They bonded through your destruction. Because sometimes, the quickest way for two insecure people to feel powerful is to unite over tearing down someone who makes them feel small. Let me give you an image, Capricorn. Imagine you are a lighthouse. You stand tall. You don't chase attention, you emit guidance. You don't move, but people still look for your light in storms. Now imagine others standing beside you with no light of their own. Rather than building their own flame, they try to block yours, hoping that if they dim you, they'll stop being reminded of their own darkness. But dimming someone else never creates light. It only leaves everyone in confusion. That's what envy does. Capricorn, your sister didn't destroy you. She exposed herself. And the family member who joined her, they didn't betray you to elevate themselves. They betrayed you because they feared you'd no longer need them to stand tall. But here's the divine irony. They thought betraying you would weaken you, but it only exposed how fragile they truly are. They hoped the damage would be invisible. They hoped no one would question their intentions. But envy is a fire, and fire always leaves smoke. And now, the air is clearing. People are beginning to see through it. They're questioning the very stories that once made them turn away from you. Because the truth doesn't whisper, it echoes. Life lesson number 4, envy hides behind familiar faces. Those who cannot celebrate your light will try to dim it, not because you hurt them, but because your growth made them face their own stagnation. Envy wears the face of family, but your worth is not diminished by their discomfort. Keep shining. Their shadows are not your responsibility. Part 5. The silence of God was your hidden shield. Capricorn, there's a moment that happens after betrayal. Quieter than the pain, deeper than the anger, and more haunting than the lies. It's the moment you ask, where was God? Why didn't the universe stop this before it happened? Why was I left unprotected while they plotted behind my back? You replay the signs. You wonder if there were warnings you missed. You think, maybe, just maybe, if you had prayed harder, or trusted less, or stayed more alert, none of it would have happened. But here is a truth many don't speak aloud, and one you need to hear now more than ever. God's silence is not absence. The universe watching without interference is not abandonment. The quiet is not weakness. The stillness is not permission. Sometimes, the greatest act of protection is letting you see who someone truly is. Because if the betrayal had been prevented, you'd still be trusting the ones who were already turning against you. If everything had stayed peaceful, you'd still be breaking your back to maintain relationships that were never real. If God had stepped in and shut it down, you would have thought their love was pure. You would have continued sharing secrets, building plans, holding hands, with people who were already sharpening the blade. Let me give you an image. Imagine being in a house built on a hollow foundation. From the outside, it looks perfect. People admire it. You've decorated every room with memories, with meaning. But underneath, cracks have been forming. Slow, invisible fractures that one day will cause the entire thing to collapse. Now imagine if someone you trusted, someone who built it with you, knew those cracks were there, but smiled every day while the floor beneath you gave way. Would you want to keep living there? Or would you rather have the truth revealed, even if it meant rebuilding from scratch? This is what divine silence offers you. Not punishment, but revelation. Not rejection, but redirection. Capricorn, I know you've wondered why the betrayal wasn't exposed sooner. I know you begged the sky in the middle of the night. Please just let me see who's real. And now, you have your answer. It wasn't immediate, but it was complete. The masks didn't just slip, they fell. And now, you see clearly what was always hiding beneath the smiles. That was protection. Because the truth may burn, but lies poison you slowly. God didn't stop the betrayal, because he was using it to reveal what your intuition had long suspected. Let's take it further. What if the betrayal didn't happen to you, but for you? What if it was the only way to remove people from your destiny? Who could have destroyed everything you were meant to become? Think of Joseph in the ancient texts. Betrayed by his own brothers. Sold into suffering. left in the dark. But what they didn't know is that by sending him away, they sent him directly into his calling. What looked like punishment was protection. What looked like abandonment was alignment. And Capricorn, the same is happening for you. You don't need to understand everything yet. You don't need to see the full circle completed. But know this: the silence wasn't a failure. It was the sacred pause that allowed the truth to rise. Because if God had shouted, you wouldn't have heard your own wisdom. If the universe had stormed in, you wouldn't have learned how to trust your inner voice. You weren't left defenseless. You were being led slowly, painfully, to clarity. And now that you have it, you can never unsee what you've seen. You can never unknow what's been revealed. And that is your shield. Life lesson number 5, silence is sometimes the loudest protection. When God doesn't speak, He's still acting. When the universe seems still, it's preparing the shift. Silence isn't neglect, it's often the safest space to watch the truth rise to the surface. What didn't make sense then will one day reveal itself as the greatest act of protection you never asked for but always needed. Part 6, the law of return, karma's unstoppable hand. Capricorn, you've been quiet. You didn't retaliate. You didn't scream your truth from rooftops. You didn't rush to clear your name or destroy theirs. And maybe, at times, you questioned if that was weakness. But let me tell you something that's written across the laws of the universe. Nothing done in secret stays buried forever. Nothing sown in betrayal escapes the law of return. You see, karma isn't a myth. It's not a fairy tale justice system we tell children to make them behave. Karma is motion. Karma is order. Karma is the divine current that ensures every action returns home. With interest. Your sister may think she got away with it. She may smile like nothing happened. She may still sit at family dinners, laugh at stories, pretend like truth has no gravity. But the universe keeps receipts. And every word she spoke in darkness, every manipulation, every half-truth and false smile, they've already started echoing back to her. Same with the family member who stood beside her. They didn't just align with betrayal. They aligned with imbalance. And balance is what karma always restores. Capricorn, I know your nature. You are patient, disciplined. You let your results speak. You let life unfold instead of chasing vindication. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. Because karma does what your hands don't need to do. You don't need to force anyone to feel guilty. You don't need to expose anyone's lies. You don't need to chase truth. Truth knows its way home. The longer you stay silent, the more clearly people begin to notice. Not your pain, but your power. Because nothing confuses your enemies more than your refusal to break. And nothing activates karma faster than silent endurance wrapped in dignity. Let me tell you a real pattern I've seen over and over in life. The person who betrays never expects consequences. They expect confusion. They expect your silence to mean defeat. They expect people to believe them because they spoke first or louder. But karma isn't about who speaks first. It's about who stood in alignment. And you, Capricorn, you stood in integrity. So the law of return is not your weapon. It's your justice. There was a woman named Lena, another Capricorn. After a quiet betrayal by her sister and aunt, she lost her place in her family circle. She never responded. She didn't fight back. She simply walked away. 2 years later, everything changed. Why? Because those who had joined in her betrayal began turning on each other. Lies unraveled. Secrets spilled. The same tactics used against Lena were used against them. And the family? They started asking questions. They started remembering Lena's silence. They started wondering what else had been twisted. Without lifting a finger, her name began to clear. Because truth has weight and eventually, it rises to the surface, even in the most poisoned waters. Capricorn, listen closely. Karma isn't revenge. It doesn't operate from bitterness. It doesn't need anger to move. Karma is divine balance. It comes when you're not looking. It comes in forms they never expect. It may come as isolation in the very circles they tried to poison against you. Sudden breakdowns in their plans. Relationships collapsing because they were built on lies. Whatever form it takes, you won't have to witness it to know it's happening. You'll feel it. Because the air gets lighter. The pain stops echoing. Your energy begins to return. And you'll realize, justice isn't always a courtroom moment. Sometimes, it's peace returning to your life, while chaos returns to theirs. So don't pick up the phone to correct the story. Don't chase an apology that will never come. Don't try to match the energy of those who never understood yours. You're not meant to fight this battle with noise. You were meant to win it with stillness. And you are winning. Every day you choose grace over gossip, dignity over destruction, healing over havoc. You are moving closer to a life they can't reach. Life lesson number 6. Karma doesn't ask for permission, only alignment. The energy you put into the world will always find its way back to you. Let others build their house on lies, you stay rooted in truth. What they send out will return. What you endure in silence becomes your shield. Justice doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it whispers in peace, and in the downfall of those who believed they could escape it. Part 7. How Capricorn survives, the phoenix through the ice. Capricorn, not all rebirths are loud. Some don't come with flames. Some don't announce themselves with chaos or tears. Some are quiet, still, icy, like a mountain breaking apart in silence. Not because it's crumbling, but because it's revealing a new form underneath. And that's how you survive. Unlike other signs who rage, cry, or scream when betrayed, you shut down. You freeze. You go silent. To the outside world, it may look like numbness. To those who hurt you, it may look like defeat. But what they don't realize is that this is your cocoon. This is where you process. This is where you don't just grieve, you strategize. Capricorn, your pain doesn't leak. It crystallizes into focus. You don't collapse, you reconstruct. You're not the phoenix who bursts into flame. You are the phoenix that burns from the inside out, slowly, cleanly, coldly, and then rises without needing to be seen. That's what makes your healing terrifying to those who harmed you. You don't come back with a scream. You come back stronger, and they never see it coming. Let's talk about your strength. It's not flashy. It's not posted on social media. It's not shared in long emotional confessions. Your strength looks like waking up and going to work even when your heart is shattered. Keeping your promises while others lie about your character. Smiling in public while rebuilding yourself in private. People mistake this for coldness. They think you don't feel much. But the truth is, you feel everything. You just don't allow your emotions to lead. And that's what saves you. Because while others self-destruct from betrayal, you transform. You make your pain earn its place in your evolution. You won't waste the wound. You'll use it to reinforce the parts of you that were once too open, too trusting, too soft. Let me tell you about a Capricorn man named Elias. His younger brother had sabotaged a business deal he worked on for years. His silence during family dinners was interpreted as guilt. His absence was mocked. But Elias didn't explain. He didn't retaliate. He didn't try to make others see his pain. He just disappeared, quietly. What people didn't know was that during those 18 months of silence, he rebuilt the business in a new city. He tripled his income. He restructured his team. He healed slowly, deliberately, and without performing it for anyone. And when he returned, he didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't seek revenge. He simply showed up as a version of himself so strong, so self-possessed, that even those who doubted him couldn't look him in the eye. Capricorn, that is your nature. You don't just recover. You become untouchable. Every betrayal becomes a blueprint. Every heartbreak becomes a boundary. Every tear becomes a calculation for how to never be broken the same way twice. This is your sacred evolution. Not to become harder, but to become unshakably aligned. You don't lose your heart, you just protect it better. You don't lose your compassion, you just become more discerning. And you don't lose your softness. You just learn when and where it's safe to show it. So if you're still in the middle of your winter, If you're still frozen, still silent, still aching, don't rush it. Because this is where you are rewriting your destiny. Let others think you're retreating. Let them believe they won. They don't know the mountain is shifting beneath the ice. And when the thaw comes, they will not recognize the version of you that rises. Life lesson number 7, not all rebirths need fire. Some just need silence. True transformation doesn't always look like a dramatic comeback. Sometimes, it's quiet, disciplined, and invisible to those who never understood your strength to begin with. Don't rush your winter. Let it shape you. Because when you rise, it will not be with noise, but with a power that cannot be undone. Part 8. You were chosen because you could survive it. Capricorn, you may have spent nights asking, why me? Why was it your sister? Why your family? Why were you the one betrayed, not once, but twice? Why does it always feel like life gives you the heavier load, the harder lessons, the colder silences? But here's the truth most never consider. It happened to you, because it could not happen to just anyone. You were chosen because you could survive it. Capricorn is the sign of the mountain goat. But not the kind that grazes at the base. No. You are the one that climbs to the top when oxygen is thin, when no one else dares to go. You are ruled by Saturn, the planet of structure, discipline, karma, and time. It's no coincidence. Because while others are born to dance through life, you were born to endure it, to sculpt it, to master it. That means your trials will never be light. But your rewards, they're also never small. So yes, you were tested by family. By the very people you were taught to trust the most. Not because you were expendable, but because you were being shaped. Some souls are called to higher purposes. Not in fame, but in fortitude. And the only way to build that kind of strength is through betrayal that shatters illusions, through loss that severs false attachments, through pain that carves the unnecessary away, leaving only the essential. Capricorn, this wasn't punishment. This was preparation. You were being prepared for a future where the price of your influence would be discernment. You were being refined for a position where the cost of leadership would be loneliness. You were being prepared to carry power, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that changes generations quietly, by standing firm. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how many Capricorns in history and mythology were isolated before they rose? The wise elder, the hermit on the mountain, the quiet builder in the shadows, the misunderstood leader who is remembered long after they are gone. You are not here to be popular. You are here to be permanent. To build something so rooted, so real, that even when others fall away, your legacy remains. That's why the betrayal cut so deep. Because it came from the soil you thought was sacred. But all it did was expose the truth. Not every root deserves to grow with you. You were chosen because you could walk through this fire without becoming bitter. You could be betrayed and still rise without seeking revenge. You could be misunderstood, but still choose clarity over chaos. Capricorn, this is what makes you rare. Others crumble when family turns cold. You crystallize. Others need closure to move on. You create closure within. Others scream to be heard. You build a new life so solid it speaks for you. You are here to carry wisdom that can't be taught in books. Wisdom that only comes through soul experience. Betrayal was not the end of your path. It was the rite of passage into your higher self. And those who hurt you, they were not stronger. They were just earlier in their lesson. Don't look at their actions as proof of your weakness. See them for what they are, the catalyst for your ascension. Life lesson number 8, the deepest trials are reserved for the strongest souls. You were not chosen because you were disposable. You were chosen because you could carry what others could not. The betrayal wasn't meant to break you, it was meant to burn away every false attachment so you could rise into your calling, unshaken and fully aware of who you are. Part 9. Your wisdom after the wound. Capricorn, when you were betrayed, you didn't just lose people. You lost illusions. You lost the luxury of naivety. You lost the comforting lie that love, by itself, is enough to guarantee loyalty. But what you gained That's something far more powerful than anyone could have handed to you. You gained wisdom. The kind no book can teach. The kind no mentor can summarize. The kind only a broken heart and a silent room can deliver. You see, betrayal isn't just a scar. It's a map. It teaches you where you let your guard down too easily, where your boundaries were too soft, where your loyalty became currency others spent without cost. And Mark AT, no one internalizes that map better than you. You don't just remember lessons. You restructure your life around them. From this moment forward, you speak a little less. You observe a little more. You no longer explain yourself to people who've already decided who they want you to be. You no longer justify your silence because silence has become your greatest shield. Capricorn, here's something most people don't understand about your kind. Once you're hurt deeply enough, you don't just become guarded. You become sovereign. You build invisible walls, not to keep love out, but to protect the sacred parts of yourself that were once handed over too freely. You don't stop trusting. You just stop handing access to those who haven't earned it. And that is wisdom. There was a Capricorn woman named Denise. She was the kind of person everyone turned to. The fixer, the peacemaker, the emotional anchor of her family. But when she discovered her closest cousin had betrayed her in partnership with her sister, it shattered her worldview. She didn't erupt. She didn't retaliate. She simply stepped away, blocked the noise, and started rebuilding her circle from scratch. What shocked everyone wasn't how angry she became. It was how peaceful she remained. How she no longer argued. How she no longer over-explained. How she just quietly vanished from places she once poured her heart into. Years later, when those same people tried to reconnect, she welcomed them but never let them close again. Because she had learned the lesson. Not everyone deserves a second chance at your soul. Capricorn, your wound has matured you. You don't chase closure now, you create it. You don't try to prove your worth, you embody it. You no longer ask, why did they do it? You ask, what did this awaken in me that needed protecting? This is the kind of wisdom that can't be stolen. It can't be manipulated. It can't be undone. Because it was carved in silence, forged in fire, and sealed by truth. You are now the version of yourself that no one can break the same way twice. You are not hardened. You are refined. And this refined version of you sets firmer boundaries, spots manipulation faster, understands that love without respect is not love, understands that shared blood does not equal shared values, understands that peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the absence of betrayal. Let them say you've changed. Let them whisper that you're distant now. Let them miss the old version of you who tolerated too much. You're not who you were. And that is the gift. Life lesson number 9, wisdom is the gift pain gives those who listen. You may not get apologies. You may not get closure. But you will get clarity. And once you have that, you no longer need their explanations because your intuition becomes your compass and your peace becomes your boundary. Part 10, their shame, your crown. Capricorn, we've walked through the fire together. From the first cut of betrayal, to the second blade sharpened by someone you once loved, to the silence of God that turned out to be your greatest shield. And now, here we are. And you're still standing. Not untouched, but unshaken. Not naive, but awakened. Not broken, but built anew with stronger bones, sharper vision, and a heart that no longer beats for approval, but for truth. So let's name this for what it truly is. This is your coronation. No, not the one with celebration and applause. This is not a victory others will cheer for because they were never meant to understand your path. This is the quiet crowning moment, when the universe places something sacred on your head and says, you endured what others couldn't. Now carry what others can't. Their shame, Capricorn, is no longer yours to carry. Let them wrestle with the lies. Let them dance with the consequences of their own choices. Let them sit in the space they created, a space without your loyalty, without your light. Because here's the cosmic truth. The more they tried to take your crown, the more it became impossible to remove, because it was never given to you by man. It was etched into your destiny by the universe itself. Capricorn, you are no longer in survival mode. You are in sovereignty. You no longer need to prove who you are. Your peace says it for you. Your presence carries it. Your silence confirms it. They tried to define you by what they did to you, but you will be remembered for how you rose anyway. Let me leave you with this final truth. Every betrayal that tried to bury you only revealed that you were the seed. They mistook your quiet as weakness. They mistook your distance as guilt. They mistook your endurance as submission. But what they missed was that you were never playing their game. You were building your own kingdom. And now, the crown they thought they could snatch, it sits not on your head, but in your energy, your boundaries, your evolution. So don't return to the room that stripped you. Don't re-explain your truth to people who used it against you. Don't reopen doors that the universe already locked behind you. Instead, walk forward, crowned in dignity, dressed in discernment, and wrapped in the silence that no one can invade anymore. Because you didn't just survive, you ascended. And that is the justice. Life lesson number 10, your crown was forged in fire. You weren't crowned by applause. You were crowned in silence through every test you passed, every tear you swallowed, every truth you chose over comfort. The ones who betrayed you only revealed what you were always becoming. Don't let their shame stain your rise. Their chapter is over. But yours is just beginning. Capricorn, if this message spoke to you, if something in your spirit awakened today, don't leave quietly. Let your voice be heard in the comments. I was chosen. I rise anyway. Subscribe to Zodiac Secrets Revealed, because what's ahead for you is bigger than what tried to break you. And the next time someone underestimates your silence, let them find out what happens when a Capricorn evolves beyond their reach. Your crown was never theirs to take, and now it shines brighter than ever.